to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 122. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
but that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we're talking to Christine. Christine is joining us for a second time. She was with us on episode 110 and shared about her study abroad experience at the start of 2020 in Italy. So that went about how you can imagine to be in Italy at the start of 2020. But Christine has done additional study abroad experiences, so we are welcoming her back today to talk about that. Welcome, Christine!
Hi, I'm so excited to be back doing this again.
Yay! We're happy to have you.
Yes, we are definitely happy to have you. Although we have a new set of intro questions for you.
Ooh,
Yikes.
changing it up.
We are. We definitely are. So since you've already been on, we didn't want to ask you the same questions again because that would be silly. So instead, first question. When in your travel history were you first consciously aware of differences in culture in a significant way?
Oh, I think my first real travel experience was right after I graduated high school, and I went to Cambodia with a group from my Interact Club, which was basically like, if you know Rotary, they had a high school volunteer club, essentially. And a few of us went to Cambodia for 2 weeks, and it was like, from that first moment, stepping off the airplane, everything was so different. And we were in Battambang, which is, you had to take a bus to get there. There was no airport nearby, so it was like a 2-hour bus ride. And just, that was like our first day. The first thing we did was drive, and you're just driving through the countryside. And I was like, none of this looks like anything I've ever seen before.
Like, what did it look like?
The one thing I remember very distinctively is out in the more rural areas, they don't have like plumbing, and they don't have a way to get water out there. So they actually have these huge clay pots. Every house had like 5 or 6 giant clay pots with the lids off. And there's a rainy season and a dry season during the year. And our driver told us that during the rainy season, those huge pots collect water. And then that's all the water that they have for the rest of the year when it's not raining. And so that's drinking water, cooking water, water for the animals. That's everything. And
Wow.
that was just such an insane concept to try to grasp at 18 years old when, before I'd only ever gone like to the other places in the US. I'd never traveled outside the US before. So that was a stark difference for sure.
Yeah, that would definitely stick with you. I can see why. See why you remember that.
Yes, exactly.
Huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. How did that change your mindset? Like when you came back to the States and kept living your life, what did that change about you?
Man, heavy hitter question right in the beginning.
Yeah, well, you've already been on once, so
Yeah, this
dive
is
right in.
podcast 201 now, not 101. So.
We upped the game. I mean, this is maybe a tiny bit cliche, but that trip quite literally changed my entire life. It changed my trajectory. I thought I wanted to be in marketing. I thought I wanted to study business, maybe English. And then I came back from Cambodia and I was like, nope, I'm studying international studies. I'm focusing on human rights. Like, this is something that's really important to me. And that was just insane to have that sort of experience. You know, I think that especially in that moment, the timing of just 2 months before I go to college, I had this experience, was incredible. And now I'm looking in the fall to go to grad school to keep studying international studies. So it quite literally changed my entire life. Yeah, it was an experience I hold very dear to my heart.
That's awesome.
I mean, those are the reasons why we travel, right? Is for those experiences to broaden our horizons and affect the way that we live our lives. So awesome.
Definitely.
Are you ready for our second round 2 question?
I know we already had some big questions.
Tell us about your first heartbreak.
No, this next one might be a little bit more of a challenge just because it hasn't been that long since you've been on the podcast last. But how has your travel style changed since the last time you talked with us?
Probably, this is actually very ironic. So I just mentioned I'm going to grad school next year. And actually, this coming weekend, I will be traveling to Boston. I've never been to Boston before. It's my first time. My dream school is there and I got in. So I want to go visit campus. I know, I'm so excited. So I'm going with my mom. And I think I had mentioned the last time I was on this podcast that I am such a planner and a prepper in like all other areas of my life. I have a very detailed planner that I keep up to date constantly. Like, I love being prepared, but there's something about when I travel, I just don't have plans. Like, I know how I'm going to get somewhere. I know where I'm going to stay, but like the day-to-day activities, I just keep super open. And it's funny that you asked that because today my mom calls me and she's, telling me, oh, I've been looking at different stuff and we should do this and this and that. Like, what do you think? What are you trying to do? Like, what do you want to do during our days? I'm like, I'm good. I want to see campus. That's pretty much the big thing. Other than that, like, I'm ready to just walk around, hang out, eat some food. So, that's funny because I was literally thinking about that today, that I am still very much a open plan kind of traveler. I like to have things wide open so I can just take the days as they come and see what happens.
That is just so foreign to me, but awesome. Good for you.
Well, it's foreign to me. Like, normally I seriously am. Like, my day-to-day life, I'm always a forward thinker. I'm always a planner. I like to have things detailed out. But there's something about travel that, like, you know what? If I'm going to go somewhere new, I just want to experience what happens and, come what may. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it served you well, right?
Yeah. No, I've definitely been able to do some really cool things that otherwise I wouldn't have had time for.
Yeah. That's great. See, you survived question 2 without too much trouble.
Yay!
Wonderful.
Are you ready for question 3?
Yes.
What is something that you've done while traveling that you never want to do again?
This is probably a wonderful segue into the experience of being in Southeast Asia. But the first place I went was Vietnam. And I went with a friend of mine who was also on the program. Neither one of us had a lot of travel experience. I was a junior in college, and the last time I had traveled was Cambodia. And that was with a group of 5 people and a teacher who was in charge of us. So I didn't have to think that much. And there are quite a lot of things that I probably would never do again. And coincidentally, a lot of those had to do with lack of planning or lack of just thinking through a situation. So there were some stressful moments in there, being dropped off at the wrong airport and literally having to run down the highway with our bags to make it to the correct place. And that was insane. And I say I would not want to do that again. However, I made the exact same mistake in Italy. We had taken a bus to the airport. It stopped outside of the airport. I was with my friend Melina, and for some reason I'd been taking a nap, right? And Melina woke me up and she was like, hey, like, I think we're supposed to get out. The airport is here. I cannot tell you why. I have no idea why, but I was like, no, I don't think we're supposed to get out right now. And Melina, God bless her heart, listened to me, and the bus drove away from the airport. And then I woke up enough to be like, wait a second, like, we do need to be at the airport. Like, that's where we're going. So I went up to the bus driver and I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, can you please stop the bus? And found myself again with my bags on my back, walking up a freeway ramp to get to the airport. And I think it's my curse. Yeah. So I would probably not suggest sleeping on a bus when you're trying to make it to the airport, because you'll wake up way too sleepy and not understand what's going on. So there's my tip for any new traveler. Just be more aware than I am, please.
Don't sleep through the airport stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Twice.
I know. It's so embarrassing. I feel like I've traveled enough, and I feel like, I don't know. I'm not a super observant person. I'm very aware of that, in myself. But that's pretty bad. Like, even I know that's pretty bad. And so hopefully we will never have a third time of that experience. I just remember being in Italy, like, I cannot believe this is happening to me again.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully there is no third time for you. Wow.
No. But it makes for the good podcast story.
That it does. That it does. I think you've alluded to this already, but what travel story are you going to tell us about today?
Yeah, so I want to talk about my first study abroad, which was to Thailand. And this was also the biggest trip I've ever been on. I went to Vietnam for a week before the program started. Then I was in Thailand for 3 months. And then afterwards, I went to Malaysia and then Hong Kong. So altogether, I think I was gone 4.5, 5 months. And it was, like I said, the biggest trip I've ever done, and full of lots of exciting stories, as you can probably tell from the first two.
Oh my goodness.
That's so cool. So what was the decision-making process like to choose this trip and sign up for it and prepare yourself? Like, what was all the lead up to this trip for you?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this in the last podcast that we did. This trip, I knew I wanted to study abroad. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. UW is amazing. They have quite literally thousands of programs you can choose from, both like exchange programs, UW-led programs, independent study programs. I mean, there's just tons. It's kind of overwhelming. And I had looked on the website for hours and hours before, just like poring over different ones. What would be good for my major? Where's a location I wanted to go to? And one day I was walking home from campus and it was pouring rain. This was sophomore year. It was winter quarter. It was pouring rain and I was mad. I was like, I don't like Seattle. I don't like the rain. This is no fun. And I sat down at my desk just like dripping wet. And I was like, I'm going to go somewhere sunny next year. And so I like clicked on all the sunny countries that I could think of. And this Thailand program just popped up and I was like, great, I'm going to apply. And then I got in and said yes. And so after hours and hours of research, it came down to being very angry at the rain, but it worked out.
So this trip was out of spite then?
Yes. 100% out of spite. Definitely.
Give us an overview of what the study part of your study abroad was. I mean, I'd love to hear, we'll get into a little bit more details, but so you picked Thailand, but you're also, this is a study abroad. So you must have done school in some form. So how did this fit into your education?
Yeah, so we were focusing on the gender dimensions of conflict and conflict resolution. and specifically meeting with organizations working to combat that. So, I mean, as we all know, there is a crisis going on in Myanmar, Burma, and I was actually recently in the news yet again. And so when I was there, we were working on the northern Thai border between Thailand and Myanmar, Burma. And everyone has heard of the Rohingya crisis, but since the 70s, there's been a crisis. Ryan is shaking his head.
I don't know this crisis. I'm sorry. You're going to have to tell me.
That's okay. There's a genocide going on right now with the Rohingya people. And a lot of people have been aware of it more recently. And there's been more news about it recently. And it's had some global awareness. But there's actually been, although it hasn't been officially labeled by the UN as a genocide, there has been some very serious things happening to the Shani and the Krini, which are ethnic groups that are right on the northern border near Thailand. And so we were working, we were studying, the history with that. It's been happening since about the 70s. And it was very heavy stuff. But it was also very impactful. And in the same way that Cambodia forced me to open my eyes to a whole new world and, kind of sparked the desire to study international studies, this trip in Thailand sparked my desire to continue undergraduate school, because the more and more I learned about this, about conflict and conflict resolution and peace building, but through a gendered lens, because unfortunately, a lot of times women aren't viewed as autonomous actors in conflict. And thus, when peace building strategies are happening, they're ignored. And when you ignore women and children in peace building strategies, they're just not sustainable. And so that was a lot of what we were studying. And I was just absolutely just drawn into it. And actually, if it wasn't my junior year, probably would have changed one of my majors to gender studies. So I could have done international studies and gender studies, but it was too late to do that. So I just I sat down with my advisor. I said, look, this is what I'm interested in. What can we do? And she was like, you take the classes you want to take and I'll make sure the credits work out. And so that was just incredible. And I got to study what, I was passionate about. And now my grad school program is gender in international studies and humanitarian aid studies. So it was an incredibly impactful program for me, and was kind of what inspired, what I want to do in the future.
I mean, there's so much in what you just said.
Yeah.
Let's take a couple of steps back. So I'm not super knowledgeable about that part of the world. So I just have some just kind of context questions first, and then maybe can go into a little bit more. So for example, you said Myanmar, Burma. So can you talk a little bit about the name of the country?
Yeah, for sure. And I will give a full disclosure. I was in Thailand studying for long enough to feel like I knew everything and then realize I knew nothing, which, when you've hit like a good point of studying, when you're like, actually, I don't know even the surface level of this information. So everything with a grain of salt. Would really recommend anyone who's interested to do some research. I know it was just in the news a couple of days ago, actually, I think last week, that there is now a coup and the military has taken over the country. So this is very much real. This is very much still happening. And I would highly encourage, looking this up. But so I use Myanmar, Burma. I use both sometimes because some people only know Myanmar or know Burma. So it's just easier to cover the bases so that people know which country you're talking about. But also depending on who you're talking to, one is more appropriate than the other. for a lot of different reasons. There is the ethnic group there, the Burmese, which is where Burma comes from, but there's also a lot of other ethnic groups there, which is where a lot of the conflict is between this idea of, there's all these different groups and, quote unquote, whose country is it, which we know is not, it's everyone deserves to feel safe where they're living. Everyone deserves to have a place where they can be and express who they are. So they tried to they did change the country's name to Myanmar as a symbol to be more inclusive of that. But a lot of people, believe that it's like a Band-Aid, a Band-Aid for something that needs stitches. So again, I would recommend, looking this up, but I tend to use both because when my instructors were speaking with us, they would often switch off between the two and, did tell us that depending on who you're talking to, someone's going to appreciate one more than the other.
Yeah, it's interesting how names aren't really that important, and yet they're really important. Right? Like it seems like a little thing that maybe isn't a super big deal, and yet it can mean and symbolize and represent so many things to a people group, to a country, right? To an ethnic group, to all of those things that, it's something as simple as what do we call it can actually be really complex.
Huge.
So that's really good to remind me of that and to share some of those complexities that exist now. Because it seems like oftentimes, at least for me, I think of those things as happening in the past, like in history, but those things are still going on in parts of the world right now. That's a good reminder.
Yeah. And like I said, it's so current. I mean, even last week it was in the news with the military taking over. So it's definitely very relevant, but there are a lot of people who don't know about it or who have never heard about it. So it's so important to be able to spread that information. So I'm even grateful that on this podcast to, your listeners, anyone out there who's interested, would definitely recommend doing some more research on it because it's very important. And, like it or not, the aid money goes where people are interested. And if people aren't aware of what's going on and people aren't interested, then there's going to be a lot less aid that can get into those areas.
That's a good point. I haven't really thought about it from that perspective before.
Yeah, that was a good point. I think it's interesting what you're saying about words, Ryan, because I feel like words don't mean something to people who are coming from a place of privilege or people who are coming from or just people who aren't impacted by the words. And they're like, it's this or this, whatever. And yet to people who are impacted or people who are the ones who are not being treated fairly or don't have a voice, those words make a huge difference to them.
Yeah. Words can have a lot of weight. When I was a kid, I mean, you've heard the sticks and stones rhyme before. And when I was a kid, I had a teacher who used to say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can really hurt me. And I think that's so true and so relevant, especially right now in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So traveling to this area, were there people who were worried about safety? Were you worried about safety? Did the program do anything to kind of cut that off and be like, here's how we're going to be super safe? Or were they like, nope, that's part of it is you're going to an area where you may not feel as safe?
Well, so that's a great question because it is an active conflict zone. Now we were in Thailand and we were in Chiang Mai for 90% of this. And Chiang Mai is very safe. I never felt uncomfortable there at all. We spent a week in a few different villages. So part of what our program was doing as well was looking at more like the environmental side of things in Thailand, and very fascinating. I'm not very sciencey myself. So this was all exciting things to learn about. But we learned about eco farming, which was like, instead of having, when we think of farms here, we think of like lots and lots of acres of something. But this was designing a forest in a specific square footage so that you're getting, what you would harvest from the forest, but just more contained. So that was a fascinating component. And we got to go to villages who are adapting this. And that was really cool to see. But the other week that we spent was in Mae Sot. When Mae Sot is the border town right between Northern Thailand and Myanmar Burma. And so we were right there. I mean, you could literally see across the street. And before we went, our teachers were very animate about the fact that you are either going to have to drive to Portland and get a visa, or you're going to have to go to Thailand with no visa, stay, because I think you get like 60 days as an American citizen. You can stay there without a visa, cross the border into Myanmar, and then come back and get a stamp again, and then you get another 60 days. I opted to go to Portland because I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I want to be good to go. So I did a road trip down to Portland, super easy. I handed her my paperwork and a picture, and I had a visa within, a couple of minutes after she processed everything. So it was worth it to me. But there was a chunk of the program who wanted to go across. And I would never say it was dangerous. There's no active conflict happening right on that border, but it was an insane experience because Myanmar decided to switch the roads. So they drive how you drive in, I think, because in Thailand it was like UK driving. But they decided to switch. Myanmar Burma decided to switch for the sole purpose of making it more complicated to get through borders. And so when you got into this border town, I mean, we're talking miles and miles and miles of cars and trucks backed up trying to get into the country. And they're stopping a lot of them and searching them, especially coming into Thailand, because people are trying to sometimes smuggle people in and that sort of thing. And, so that was I heard, I didn't do it myself, but from people who did that, you walk right up and then you walk across the bridge and you see where the traffic is changing and that confusion. And then they pretty much turned around and walked back. But the craziest part of that to me was there were a few of us who didn't need to do that. And so one of the women we were with that we met down there was like, hey, do you want to see something? And took us to this little beach. And I'm talking like maybe a few hundred yards away from where miles of cars are backed up. There's this little beach, and there was a man on a wooden raft with a stick. And you could pay him 30 baht, and he would push his little stick across the water, and you would be on the other side. It's like you're standing there looking across, like I'm in Thailand and I'm looking across at Myanmar, and I can see it's right there, that bank. And this little dude with the stick is just going back and forth. And there were these huge casinos on the other side. That's a whole other thing, that China had put in these huge casinos, even though gambling was technically illegal. And I literally witnessed on that side where the casinos were, someone that night had gambled away a car, and there was a brand new car being put on one of those rafts and like pedaled back to the Thailand side. So just the most surreal experiences. Like I think back about that, I'm like, how did I witness that? There was no one else around us. It was like me, two other girls from my program, and this one lady who we had met up with who worked there, and just a crazy experience. Ryan's face.
I'm just processing it. So again, it's so different from the experiences that we would typically have in the United States. and then also different than travel experiences that I've had, even in other countries. Again, I haven't been to that part of the world yet.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think that this is definitely a unique experience because it was a study program, so it was an educational program. And this particular woman we were with had come to speak to our group, and we had a free day that next day. And she said, hey, and you guys want to come out and see the school? Because she was talking to us about a school that she worked at specifically with refugee children. She's like, if any of you guys want to come out and see the school, you know, like you have your free day tomorrow, let me know. And it was me and 2 other girls who were interested. And I am so glad I said yes to that, because that was an amazing experience. And I think most people had to say no because, like I said, they had to do that border run. But I was really grateful that I got to go and see that. And she was the one who showed us that little area. But it was just a surreal experience to literally be able to hear the engines of the cars, you know, a few yards away, backed up for miles. And you're just watching someone on a raft just go across to the river and come back. And then
Wow.
You're also surrounded by, I mean, it was dirt. There was no gravel, and they were, you know, huts and shacks and things. And then you're looking across at this brand new casino. I mean, just brand new, huge. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. And then also seeing a car on the little raft is, yeah, it was insane.
Wow. That's so cool that you got to witness that. That sounds so, unique compared to our experiences, I think. So what were the people like? Like, what was their culture? What was the general personality of the people that you interacted with?
Oh, just amazing. Just phenomenal. I met some of the most just inspirational and incredible people. And this program was so, so special because a lot of it was just going to a bunch of different organizations, learning what they're doing. You know, what are the things that are blocking you from just trying to reach your goal, which, you know, Cheryl, we both work at a nonprofit. There are a lot of things that can come in the way. There's a lot of blockades that you're like, you know what, darn it, could you just let me through? Because I'm trying to be helpful here. And it would be a lot easier if, you know, these things would work out. And, you know, we got to learn about that. And I can't even describe how incredible the people are that work at these organizations that are passionate about these things, that have this drive, but also just this kindness. And, you know, you would almost think that they'd be frustrated or angry or really like, why is this happening? And you have to fight against this and all of that. But there was just this level of understanding, this level of respect for the people they're working with. And it was just beautiful. It was beautiful leadership. It truly was. And I know, Cheryl, again, where we work, we have that idea of servant leadership. And man, that was servant leadership just at its core, just incredible. And, you know, like I said, it really influenced what I want to do. But I'll never forget the moment we were actually in one of the villages, and it was our last night, and we kind of were all circled up and talking about it. And it was near the end of the trip, so we were all kind of talking about how much we've, you know, experienced. And I was sitting there and I thought about all of the incredible people that I've met and all of the incredible work that they are doing. And if I want to meaningfully contribute to this, I need to go to grad school. I need to have more education. I need to have more experience, because I don't want to come into a space and try to say, oh, I know what to do, or I know how to fix this, or, oh, I'm just really passionate about it and I'm just here. Like, I don't want to take up space. If I'm going to take up that space, I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be impactful. I want it to be helpful in the way that it should be. And so that was really that realization that I was like, you know what, I have one more year of undergrad and I am not going to learn enough, and I need to go learn more so that when I am ready, I'm actually ready, and I have the knowledge and I have the understanding.
Hmm. That's very well said. I think that's a very good point, that it's very easy to look at a situation and just be like, oh, well, why don't they just do this? And to not understand so many layers and so many aspects. And that can be applied to so many different things for sure. And so I think that's a very humble place to come at it. And then even when you're done with grad school, you will still have more to learn. There will always be more, to learn. But I really appreciate that mindset for sure.
Do you want to go back to that part of the world to do your work?
I think so. Yes. I definitely feel a calling right now to go to school kind of open. A lot of people have been asking me like, oh, what would be like your dream job after, or, what is the job you're going for? And I just feel in my heart right now, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm going to study. I'm going to study gender in conflict and peace building strategies. And I really believe that kind of my eyes and heart will be opened, hopefully during grad school, to what exactly I want to do. But I would not be at all surprised if I found my way back to Thailand afterwards.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the role of gender in conflict resolution, since that's, what you're studying, and maybe connected to what you observed in Thailand and in Myanmar, Burma. I know you mentioned briefly at the beginning how oftentimes the needs of women and children are not included. Do you have examples of how you saw that, or the impacts of that you were able to observe while you were there?
Yeah. And again, I am in no way an expert. So that is my little prerequisite to this is everything I say definitely with a grain of salt. And I bet, 3 years from now, after I graduate, if I were to listen to this, I'd be like, oh, wait, Christine, like you forgot this, or you should say this, or, but for right now, what I can say is based on what I experienced, what I saw, what I heard from others was women are often not viewed as autonomous actors in conflict. Women are often not seen as having a role in conflict. And it's just not true. Even if women aren't actively out in battle, which we now have a lot of evidence and statistics that there are a lot more women than previously was believed, or maybe previously had happened in the past. There are a lot more women, engaging in active combat. Even if they're not, they are still actors in conflict. They are still participating. They are still being affected by conflict. You have a lot of examples of women, if men are all leaving the villages and the women are there, then the women are in charge of making sure that supplies are being brought in. The women are in charge of making sure that things are happening and groups are getting what they need. And that is participation. That is being actively involved in what's happening. So when you then, post-conflict are trying to build these peace strategies, but you're ignoring the huge role that women played and the huge effect that this conflict is also having on them, then these strategies just are not sustainable because you're eliminating an entire demographic and you're essentially saying that they had no role in this. They had no participation in this. This didn't affect them. And that's just not true at all. And, we also know, again, where Cheryl and I work, there's a focus in, trauma-informed care. And we know, unfortunately, that especially in times of conflict, there are different traumas that men and women can experience. And it's also understanding that. It's also understanding how the effects of conflict can be similar and different for both men and women. And I think that is so important. And a lot of the groups, actually, we met with several women's groups who specifically work with women and children who are either refugees or who have come down into Thailand. And they're working with them and helping them work through, the things that they experienced or the things that they were affected by. And that is super, super important. And really within the last decade, that has been a very big realization from a lot of people who study, international studies, international conflict, conflict resolution, peace building. They're really starting to recognize that this is super important to pay attention to. And I will give a little bit of a shout out to someone who I doubt may ever hear about this, but oh my gosh, I would just die if she did. Kimberly Theeden. She wrote something that I read in Thailand, Gender Conflict and Peace Building. And she actually teaches at the school that I'm hoping to be at next fall. So I am a little bit of a fangirl for her, but she was one of the first people to really, bring about that awareness for this. And yeah, like I said, I've read some of her work, and that was something that was really inspiring to me. It was part of our reading in Thailand when I was there.
Obviously, this is a very different issue overall, but it sort of reminds me of some of the work that Melinda Gates has been doing and the Gates Foundation, and the recognition that education of women has such a huge impact on the socioeconomic status of a particular country or a region, and going in and educating women, which has historically not been championed or really looked at very much, has the biggest impact on the overall state of a particular country. So it sounds, it's obviously a different issue, but it sounds like a similar thing where again, women have been ignored, and as if it doesn't matter, and actually including them in the process, in this case for peace building, could be incredibly important in building lasting peace, and maybe focusing our attention in a slightly different direction may actually work to a better solution than what we've been trying up to this point.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. And I haven't read her book, but I know she recently wrote a book. I can't even remember the name, but she kind of hints at that about really including women in that conversation. And I think that is very important. And as you said, very impactful.
I'm so excited for you.
I know. I feel like our general topic of this podcast kind of shifted from what I thought, but I love talking about this and I love spreading that awareness. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to nerd out a little bit on what I'm passionate about.
That's so good. I think that it's so important. I mean, we love to hear about like, what should people do and see? So I'm still going to ask you about that in a minute. However, I think it's so important to learn about like what is going on in these countries, what is actually happening, what's the history and what's the current situation. And if someone travels somewhere, what are they walking into? So much more than, trying to like get the perfect photo for Instagram or, things like that is, if really learning about a country and a people group involves actually understanding those aspects. So it's really important that you're sharing about those things.
Thank you.
Yeah. But also, if someone goes to Thailand, what should they do and see? And what else should they know?
I would suggest, I know when you think of Thailand, you think of Bangkok, you think of the islands, you think of the beaches. That's all fantastic. I did go to Bangkok. I did go to the islands when I was there, and they were wonderful and amazing. And I may be extremely biased because I lived in Chiang Mai when I was there, but go to Northern Thailand. It is so different than Southern Thailand. The cuisine is all different. The culture is all different. And Chiang Mai especially. Chiang Mai just, it feels such a special place. And it was such a beautiful place. And I just loved it so much. And I would really suggest, and I have suggested, I've had people, reach out because they knew I've gone to Thailand and they said, what should I do? Where should I go? I'm like, yes, of course, Bangkok. Yes, of course, beaches. Yes, of course, all the quintessential Thailand things. But please go to Northern Thailand. And when you're there, you have to have khao soi, which is a soup. And I literally ate that soup every single day for lunch to the point where I'd go to the same stall every single day and the woman would see me coming and she'd start bagging it up. Like she knew what I wanted. And I was like, oh, God bless you. And then I'd walk across the street from there and there's a little woman who sold guava. Like she had it right there and would cut it up for you. And then I'd go to my apartment and eat my soup. And it was one of the best meals I've had in my life and probably $1.50 USD. And I had it literally every day for lunch. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's only available in Northern Thailand.
Yeah. Yes. No, seriously, you cannot find. And every single time I go to a Thai restaurant, I always say, do you have khao soi? And they never do. There is apparently a couple specific Northern Thai restaurants in Seattle. Coincidentally, they happen to be fancier. Like I know one of them I think is literally called like soy or something, like after the soup. But it's kind of like a high-end place, so I've never been there before. Not quite my 30 baht soup that I'd get for lunch every day, but it's like, and you got to bear with me here, all right? And I know Ryan's not a big foodie, but Cheryl, it's like if you took it's like if you took chicken noodle soup and made it a yellow curry. So it's like a yellow curry chicken noodle soup. Then you put onions, raw onions, pickles, and crispy noodles on top. And I know it sounds funky, but it is so good. It's delicious.
I'm on board.
It's incredible.
Good.
Oh, man. It is. It is. And I know like pad thai is good and pad see is good. And of course I had all those, but I'm telling you, khao soi was something else.
I'm looking up that restaurant now.
Yeah. I was going to say, you've made Cheryl happy because now she has a new food to try. So.
Well, Cheryl, you're not allowed to go to the restaurant without me though. So if you're going, I'm coming.
Oh no, we're going together for sure.
Oh yes. That's wonderful.
Okay, so we heard about some things, but like someone goes to Chiang Mai for a week. What can they not miss? What do they have to do?
Oh, this is hard. There's a lot of incredible temples. I definitely did not go to as many as I should have. And they're all beautiful. And just incredible to see. If you go, be very careful. Of course, look up before best practices with that. Obviously taking off shoes is a big thing. Being covered knees and shoulders is a big thing. But also be very aware that feet in Thailand hold a lot of significance, and in places like that, which are considered very sacred, you're not supposed to point your feet at certain things. So at certain statues or people. So I would definitely recommend before you go to a temple, just be a responsible traveler and look up, all the things you should know before you go so that you're very aware of that. So I would definitely go to the temples. There is a night market that is, I think, at the northern gate. So Chiang Mai is very interesting because it used to be the kingdom of Lana, and it still has the wall. So there is like an inner city sort of thing, like inside this big square stone wall. And then of course now it's huge and like the wall is pretty much crumbled down. And so there's like the sprawling city outside of it as well. Most people, when they go, they stay inside the city walls. Our apartments were actually outside the city and are outside of those walls. And I mean, there was still a ton to do around us. I think it's actually a little less touristy if you go outside of that. But I believe it's the Northern Gate has a night market every night. And I would go every single night you were there. I mean, there's just so much food there, and it is all incredible and all delicious. And there is a woman called the Cowboy Hat Woman, and she's really famous because she's been on a couple of different like travel cooking shows, and she does this like duck that's been like marinated for a really long time and like cooked in this certain way. And it is honestly probably one of the top 5 things I've ever eaten in my whole life. It was so delicious. And she wears a giant cowboy hat. You can't miss her. She's right in the front. It looks a little funky, but it's delicious. Roti is another thing. All my suggestions are going to be food because it's just that's all I did there was eat food and walk around. Roti is incredible, and there's tons of different vendors just everywhere that you can go get roti from. And it's basically like this flat, like pancake type of thing, and they whip it up for you right then and there. You can get egg on it. Really recommend. It's a sweet pancake, which I know is like, oh, you get egg? That sounds weird, but it just works. And they cook it for you right then and there, and it's just warm and delicious and incredible. I literally worked out 3 times a week in Thailand. I did a morning class with a couple girls in my program. It was 7 a.m. in the morning. And the only thing that got me there, I didn't lose any weight or anything when I was there. I was working out so that I could just maintain. And I told everyone that I was like, I'm working out so I can eat later. Like, I want to be able to go all out. So, yeah. But also their mangoes, they're delicious. And there's people in this little carts on the street, and you just walk up and you point to whatever fruit you like. And I think it's like 10 baht, which is like a couple of, maybe like 50 cents. I don't quite remember the conversions off the top of my head, for like a little pouch of fruit that's fresh. I mean, they cut it right then and there for you. And it's amazing.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you go, be prepared.
Okay. So we've heard this from others.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a couple times from people, they go to other countries, there's amazing fruit, and then they're like, well, now I'm ruined for fruit. Did it ruin you for fruit or any other foods? It
yes and no, because I guava, like some of the fruit's just really hard to find here in general. And so that kind of makes it easier, because then like I don't necessarily miss it because I can't really find it here anyways. It did ruin Thai food for me. So a big tip for people in Seattle specifically, if you are looking for some good authentic Thai food and you know where the Ave is by UW, there's that Ave where it has all the different restaurants. Noodle Nation is the most authentic to me. And also I took a Thai class before I went to Thailand, and our teacher was part of an exchange program. She was born and raised in Thailand. And she told us that Noodle Nation was also the closest to authentic that
Nice.
she had. So yeah, I go there. If I'm ever craving Thai food, that's like
awesome.
the only place that I'll go to. Oh, and I would also suggest learning a little bit of Thai if you can. I feel like this is a common suggestion a lot of people give, try to learn a little bit of the language. But I think especially in Thailand, in other Southeast Asian countries, because anyone pretty much you're going to interact with is going to speak English. And a lot of people, you know, in high school or in college will take Spanish or they'll take French, you know, so if you're going over to more European countries, you kind of have a little bit of knowledge in that. But being able to speak even just a few words in Thai, like I could tell people were always like shocked that I could say anything. Now it's funny because they try to say something back to me in Thai and I'd be like, oh no, like I'm a one-hit wonder. Like I know like 2 phrases, but it was just really nice. Like I could go and I could order my food in Thai. And people always seem to appreciate that and just be shocked by that. I could say hello. I could say thank you, introduce myself. A lot of that I learned taking this Thai class before I left. That was super helpful. It is a tonal language. So you can have the same quote unquote word, but there's 5 different tones and those tones change the meaning of the word.
Wow.
So it's a very complicated language, but if you can get down like a couple of phrases, I think that'll get you a long way.
Nice. And how did people react? Like, obviously, if they're like continuing to speak with you and you're like, oh no, but did people seem like pleasantly surprised when you spoke the language? Did it feel respectful? Because you hear such mixed things, I think, sometimes about like trying to speak a language. Like, should you try even if you're butchering it, or should you just go with English? So what were the reactions you got?
Shock. Complete shock. Like no one had ever even attempted before. And appreciation. Even when I would be like, oh no, I can't respond to you, you know, they'd laugh and smile and be like, all right, you know, that's fine. But I think that, at least from my experience, it was very much like, what? Like I even had a woman once be like, what? Like she was very, very shocked I had said anything to her in Thai. And again, I was very lucky because I got to take a whole quarter of it, you know, before I went. So that was some good exposure. But at least from my experience, it was a lot of shock and, you know, just that they had never seen someone try before. And so I think a lot of people appreciate, I got a lot of smiles. So I'm thinking that was a good thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
And there was a girl in my sorority when I came back, and she's Thai. And I had told her that I had learned a couple phrases. And she goes, oh, well, you know, show me what you got. And she said that was actually very good. So I think that, you know, I did a decent job. I felt pretty proud of myself after that. So
nice. Yeah. Well, Christine, thank you so much for sharing about your experience. We have a very important question for you. Based on the title of our show, Take Me With You. If you could take us with you to just one thing on this whole trip, what would it be and why?
I would take you to Smile Organic Farm. It was this little farm outside of Chiang Mai. They pick you up in a little van and drive you out there. You're there pretty much all day. And they teach you how to make 3 or 4 different Thai dishes, which you will never be able to recreate at home. I have tried. I can't find any of the things I need. But it was a great place. It's an organic little farm. They walk you through their farm area. They are very, very sweet, very kind. It's very peaceful out there. And you get to eat delicious food that you made. And that was one of my favorite experiences.
Okay.
You think that is that all right? Is that sufficient?
I accept.
Which
Cheryl
wonderful.
can live with that. Yeah.
I will go with you.
Cook food and then eat food.
In a different country.
Really enjoy either of those things.
On a farm.
Also, how could you not like
great.
a farm called Smile Organic? It's just such a cute name.
That's so cute. Is organic pretty common over there?
I think, I don't know. I think the reason they called themselves organic was because they were like their own farm. So they were trying to promote that like they are their own farm and all the food that you're going to be eating is from.
Like a farm to table.
From them.
situation.
Yes. Which, if I can put a real quick sidebar in here, just because I didn't get to say it before, I had mentioned briefly that we were in the villages for a week. And one of them we were in did a full-on true blue farm to table where we went out into one of their little, forest farms that they had. We cut down all of our own food. So literally we had like machetes and we were like out there. There's like a video of me like cutting down what looks like trees. You're like, am I going to eat a tree? Like, I don't understand it, but like you rip into it and there's all the different stuff. And like you're cutting down leaves, you're pulling out pineapple, which pineapple are so cute in the ground. I'd never actually seen one growing before. And then a little bit on the messier side, you have to get the frogs and kill the frogs.
Oh boy.
And get the chicken and kill the chicken and pull the feathers. And I mean, you are doing the whole nine. And that's one of the coolest life experiences I've ever had. And it made me appreciate just grocery stores so much because we worked all day to get that dinner, but it was also one of the most delicious dinners I've ever had. So that was a really cool experience.
That's so fun. We'll go to both with you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Me and you, Cheryl.
I've never slaughtered a chicken, but I need to at some point.
I respectfully declined that
happen.
task. There were some other people in my program a little more willing than me, and I was like, you know what? You can take this one.
And you already told us. The question is, what's your next trip? The answer is you're going to Boston this weekend? Next weekend.
Oh, yep. In exactly a week, I'll be going to Boston.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for you.
I've never been. I'm very excited.
amazing.
Me and my mom are going for a long weekend. So should be good.
Yay! You're going to have a good time. And do you have any travel questions for us?
I would like to know from each of you, once everything, like opens up and all that stuff, not necessarily like what is the first place that you would want to go, but if you could go back somewhere, like if there is a place that you've been to before that you just felt so connected to and maybe have even felt like you were missing, in the last year when travel's been pretty much non-existent, like where is somewhere that even if it was like, you're just magically were there for an evening, like where would somewhere you want to go back to be?
Everywhere.
That's the 7 coming out.
I've heard that during COVID, it's been a very nostalgic time for a lot of people. Like a lot of people are experiencing nostalgia, which makes sense because we are creating less new memories right now in a sense of being so stuck. So you're not like creating as much new. It's not none, obviously. And it's a time where there's more people who are dissatisfied. And so looking back has been very comforting. And I've had so many dreams about my past. I always do. But like, I feel like especially this last year, it's been a lot of like dreaming I was at my old job or living other places or traveling to other places. And so I want to revisit everywhere. But I'll say the most recent one. The most recent one that came up was the last time I was on a plane is my husband a couple weeks ago was like, we should go to New Orleans again. And I was like, okay. And so that was a fun one because I want to go everywhere new and I want to revisit everywhere I've gone to. But I get so excited when he has feelings about those things and when he gets excited. And it's fun now that we traveled a lot together in 2019, actually, but it's fun to me that we now have enough of a history and a travel history that we can remember those things together and that we're like, okay, if we went back, like, what did we not do that we wish we could do? And it was funny because he was like, yeah, I remember a lot of things were closed. And he was like, but it wasn't during COVID. There were like two things that were closed. But like, still, it'd be fun to go do those things that were closed. And we did not go to a swamp tour. And so, but also we just want to go eat at all the places we ate at before and more. And
Well, yeah.
so
It's
that's
New
been
Orleans,
like one where it's like, oh, it'd be so fun to go there. And it was also our honeymoon, so that's fun too. But yeah, Ryan.
I mean, my answer is not going to be a surprise to anyone. I mean, I think I have spent such a significant part of my recent adult life, like the last 10, 11 years in the Balkans, in Slovenia and Croatia. And there are so many people there that I know and that I haven't seen in a long time now. And so I would want to go back there mostly because of the people, because I mean, the countries are special to me, but they're special to me because of the people that I know there. I think more than the country itself. I mean, the countries themselves are also very awesome places. So I'm not trying to like downplay that, but it's really the people and the friends that I have there that I already didn't get to see very often. And now I've gotten to see them even less often with everything being closed. And so that's something that I've definitely missed. So when you mentioned, one place that you miss being, that's definitely it. If you want to talk about other cool places that I want to go do touristy things, that's a totally different answer. But as far as like what I truly like miss as far as like in my heart, it's definitely that part of the world.
Yeah.
Also, Ryan wants to go to Skellig Michael because he got to see it from afar, but he wants to be on it.
Yes, I do.
Do you know what that is, Christine?
No.
It's a Star Wars location.
Oh, okay.
It's an island off of the coast of Ireland. And it's been around long before Star Wars, but it was featured in I guess it's in all three of the sequel trilogy, the newest Star Wars movies.
Have you seen them?
Gorgeous.
Yeah, I have.
You know the island that Luke Skywalker is on?
Oh, yeah, with the little puffins that they had to do the CGI over because yes.
Yes. So that's Skellig Michael. And I was, in 2019, I went with a couple of friends to Ireland, which was an amazing trip and it was wonderful. And we saw Skellig Michael, but it just didn't work out time-wise to take a boat out to Skellig Michael. So we saw it like from the mainland, but it would be very, very cool to actually go on that. I mean, because it's beautiful and gorgeous and the history is incredibly old with the beehive huts and things. And anyway, it would just be very cool.
But also Star Wars.
And also Star Wars, for sure.
I mean, Star Wars was a long time ago, so it is history, right?
It is history.
Exactly, yes.
I did a road trip once with my dad in high school, and we were driving through the redwood forest, and we were kind of just like, we had the day to drive through, so we were driving on some not so main roads, and we came across this huge camera on this giant crane and trailers and security. I mean, the whole nine. And it was insane. Like, you could tell something big was going on there. And of course, we tried to talk to the person and be like, what is this? And of course they were like, oh, we have no idea. Like, it's just here. We're like, all right, like, you definitely know what it is. And they did some filming of the Star Wars movie in the redwood forest. And so although we have no definitive proof, me and my dad always like to say that we got to peek in on some of the filming. There was no like actors or anyone there. I think they were doing the camera setup, but it was still kind of crazy to see.
That's cool. Yeah, because of course that Return of the Jedi, the forest moon of Endor with all the Ewoks, they shot that in the redwoods.
Yes, I knew that.
So Star Wars has definitely been in the redwoods before.
No, she didn't.
What are you talking about, Cheryl? I know my Star Wars facts.
What year did you see that, Christine?
See the filming?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness. It's either 2014 or 2015. Think it was 2015. One of those 2 years. I can't remember.
Okay.
We did it. We were doing a
What film
college
were they
tour.
shooting?
So I knew that it was before I
I
graduated.
think The Force
in
Awakens came out
2016.
in 2015. So I
It
think
might have been 2014. I'm not sure.
I was
dad
wanted
would
Ryan to figure out what film it would have been for.
My dad's going to be listening to this podcast later, and he's going to be like yelling out the answer. He's going to be like, it was 2014.
so. Yeah, I mean, if it was 2014 and if it was a Star Wars movie, it would have been for The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
If it was
And
in
again, we have no
2015.
definitive proof that it
Sure.
was, but we in our story, we like to say that it was because it's kind of cool. Definitely something was being filmed though, because
Yes.
it was the full
Cool.
production. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is very cool. All right. Well, we're going to transition to the last part of the episode now called Wish You Were Here. In this section, each of the three of us is going to highlight a travel attraction from the different places that we've been. Kind of like a little snapshot postcard of this really cool thing that we would send home and say, hey, this was really cool. I had this great time. Wish you were here. Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here this week?
Well, I want to talk about a place in Boston specifically because
Yay!
Christine is about to go to Boston. So this one is a really cool building you can visit. There's a lot of very cool buildings in Boston, but I would like to tell you about the Boston Public Library. It's on a lot of lists of like most gorgeous buildings in Boston, and it's from 1848. And so that's very fun because our country is a brand new little baby. But if you want to get kind of old buildings, head on over to the East Coast, and then you're actually going to see some older stuff. And they're just so beautiful. And so this building, just go there and just walk around, explore. I mean, be quiet. It's a library. So, come on now. But
Well, I'll go study there. That's where I'll study.
oh my gosh, that would be magical.
I'm looking at pictures, and
it's
it
huge.
reminds me a little bit of the Suzzallo Library Reading Room at UW, but bigger.
It's
Oh.
big. It's
That's
really big.
incredible.
There's a courtyard in it too. The outside is really pretty, but then the inside, oh my gosh, just like intricate ceilings and such beautiful materials and style, and just libraries are really pretty anyway, but then you go old library and oh my goodness. And then also, here's a bonus wish you were here, because Ryan keeps getting mad at me because my wish you were here list is longer than his.
Not just a little bit longer. It's like 3 times or 4 times longer. She's cheating.
So then you're going to walk across the street and go to Sweet Green for lunch. And right
Sweet
now
Green.
they only offer takeout and delivery because of the fun COVID times. But it is just a little tiny restaurant, and it's not fancy. It's like uber healthy. Like, you're going to have so much fun ordering the healthy foods. And so I think I got some sort of a cool bowl when I was there. But my friend I was staying with, well, friend of the show, Michaela, I was staying with her and her husband, and they were like, go to the public library, walk around, then go to Sweet Green for lunch, and you'll have a great day. And it is a good day. So check out
I
the
just put
public
it in my
Boston.
phone. So
Oh, good. Yay.
I've got it now. I've been looking up the restaurants I have looked up, and the suggestions I've gotten from people have all been like not so healthy foods. So it'll be nice to at least have like one salad while I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you spent time studying in Italy. You're gonna have to go to the Italian district, and you're gonna have to get a cannoli. You know, so
Yes.
like, yes, there are not non-healthy things. You're gonna have to have a lobster roll. So there's
Oh,
other
yes.
things, but
Oh,
go to Sweet Green, and then you can feel good about the very large dinner that you have that night.
Exactly. Remember, we're working out so we can eat more later.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, that was well timed to add 2 there, Cheryl. So, Christine, what would you like to do for your wish you were here?
So for my wish I was here, it's half wish you were here / half suggestion. I think I did mention this briefly on the last podcast I did with you guys, but one of my biggest just travel tips, suggestions is go on Airbnb experiences and try to do something through that. And specifically, if you are in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, if they're still doing it, try to look up motorcycle with university students. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It was just this group of university students who wanted to work on their English and wanted to make some money on the side. And they pick you up at a market and you hop on the back of their motorcycles and you just zip around. And now everyone in Vietnam has a motorcycle. Like, that's how you get around. And this was our really kind of only experience being on one of them. And it was also with people who were like our age, because both of us were in college. And so we got along with them really well. And they take you all around and give you all this delicious food. They take you to this little pho spot, the pho soup. And it's like underneath a like freeway bridge, and like looks really sketchy, but was so delicious. So I would suggest wherever you go to look up the experiences and try to find ones that really look like people just trying to meet new people and do that. But specifically, if you're in Vietnam, motorcycle with university students, you won't regret it. It's very fun.
Nice. Ryan, what's yours?
So mine is one that I just forgot that was a cool thing. So I'm excited to share about it. And it's called Fountains Abbey. And it's just outside of Yorkshire in England. And I realized as I was thinking about this, it's my first ruin. So if those people who have been listening to the podcast regularly will know that when I was in Ireland, we went and saw a whole bunch of ruins, and I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I love them. Ruins are just super interesting to me, and I don't know why. And Fountains Abbey was actually the first one that I ever went to, and it's an old abbey, so a church, very large, and it's out again in England. And I was 18 at the time. I was there right after I had graduated from high school. Me and my cousin, who's just a few months younger than me, we both got to go out there, and I had some family that were living there. And so they took us to a whole bunch of different places. And one of the places was Fountains Abbey. And it's just very just kind of quiet and serene. And most of the walls are there, but there are no like roofs pretty much anymore. Although I think there was one area that still had some of the arches, which was cool. And there's grass throughout it, and it's the big, huge grounds, and there's all sorts of other things that you can kind of see. And I think there's, parks and gardens and things, but it's just a really cool area to just kind of walk around and recognize that it's very, very old. And just to kind of, be kind of thoughtful and reflective and kind of imagine what it might have looked like. I think that's maybe one of the things that I enjoy about ruins is you get a piece of what it looked like, but not the whole thing. And so you can kind of fill in the gaps yourself, and then also see how nature has kind of reclaimed part of what we have added to it. And so there's an element of what humans have done, but then also a natural element kind of coexisting in the same place, which I think is kind of cool. So Fountains Abbey, just outside of Yorkshire in England.
Awesome.
Wow. That's wonderful.
So we should all go.
Yes,
Let's do it.
Right now. Let's go.
Okay. I'm ready.
Well, Christine, thank you so much for being on our podcast again. It was great having you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do you have anything that you want to plug?
Yes, I would. I have been toying with the idea for a while of doing this, but when I was coming back on, I thought this would be a great time to talk about it, and then probably put the pressure on myself to actually do it. So I'm trying to start a travel Instagram, just somewhere that I can post all of the different pictures that I have from everywhere. And it is Christine Travels, so _ Christine Travels and then another _. So if you want to check that out, that will give me, there's currently nothing on there, but hopefully by the time this comes out, there will be something on there. And then, as always, I think I talked about this last time. If you want to follow my dogs on Instagram, that's Buford and Peaches. I spell Buford, Beauford, and Peaches. They are a corgi and a mini dachshund, so they're super cute. So definitely check that out if you like dogs.
Nice. It is a good follow. Also, you have a week and a half to get photos up there, so get on it.
I know. I do. I need to. I think this will motivate me. I just want somewhere that I can because I feel like I spam my own account with it so much. I'm like, well, should probably just have somewhere that I do that.
That's why I made a food one. It's because I was like, I don't want to post pictures of my food all the time on my Instagram. But if I do a food one, then people expect it. So
then you've got the perfect. I feel the same way with Buford and Peaches. All 50 of my followers, I know they want dog content.
Christine, you now have one follower of Christine Travels.
Yay, my first follower. Thank you. That's
Taking With
incredible.
You podcast is following you.
Yay. That's incredible. See, now I will. Watch me tonight. I'm going to start posting on it. So I actually have something on there.
Perfect. And we would love it if you all who are listening would follow us as well. We are at Timwe Podcast. That's at TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Instagram and we are also on Twitter and Facebook.
You now have 2 followers.
Yay! Oh my gosh. I just doubled my followers. Yeah. Look at that.
You did. You're welcome. That's what our podcast does for you.
Thank you. I start to stardom right here.
That's it.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us suggestions of guests we should have on, topics we should cover, and tell us what trip made you change your major.
Please, I would love to know that.
So would I. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, or if it's easier to remember, 406-POD-TIMWE. We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review our podcast, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about this episode on your social media to tell other people about the great experiences that Christine shared with us about Thailand and Myanmar Burma.
You now have 3 followers because my food Instagram is following you too.
This is incredible. I'm going to be Insta famous. Should I start a TikTok now too?
We're not on TikTok, so we cannot help there, but you know. As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for her awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
Christine, we are out of time, but thank you so much for sharing your travel experiences with us again on the Take Me With You podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yay.
So did we. That's all we've got this week. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here wanting to be